That's it. RV life is over. Is that what a lot of you are thinking? That RV life has finally come to an end or is coming to an end sometime in the near future? We're seeing all kinds of laws. We're seeing discrimination against people who live in vehicles. We're seeing discrimination in RV parks about who they allow to stay in their beautiful resorts. We're even seeing some troubling signs on public lands and national forests. So what does that mean for the future of living a nomadic life in an RV or a van? I have more than 8 years of experience living on the road. I've seen it all. I've heard it all. I'm going to share what my experience is navigating these rules and laws and what I think the future of RV living is going to look like for all of us. Ain't nobody gonna do it for you. Got to find your own. Hey friendlies, I'm Carolyn and welcome back to my life living in an RV for more than 8 years. If you watch other YouTubers, if you listen to the news, if you pay attention to Supreme Court decisions and grants past Oregon, you might be freaking out a little bit about what the future of RV life looks like. Whether you're currently on the road living in a vehicle full time or you're planning on it, you probably have a lot of questions. I've been seeing them in my comments. So I'm going to talk about 4 different trends that I'm starting to see that could affect the future of RV life. Number 1, I'm going to talk about RV parks and a lot of their crazy rules. Number 2, I'm going to talk about the legality of sleeping in a vehicle or camping in public places in your vehicle. Number 3, I'm going to talk about something really troubling that I'm seeing more and more in national forests. And number 4, I'm going to talk about living in your RV on private property. First of all, let's talk about RV parks. This has been an issue for quite a while. It seems to be getting a lot more attention. And that is this, what I consider a discriminatory practice of saying that older RVs cannot park in these RV parks. And I did a little research on this to prepare for this video, and I saw different excuses for it. Number 1 being liability, that if you have an older RV, it's more likely to break down, which isn't necessarily true. I've heard of a lot of problems with brand new RVs, but they're more likely to break down if they're older. And so if a natural disaster or emergency comes along and the RV is not able to move out of the RV park, then it's a liability for the RV park. I don't believe that. I don't buy it. I think it's an excuse to cover up what is discrimination against poor people, really, or people who appear poor, like me. So we've talked about this a little bit before, and people ask me all the time if I have ever been turned away from an RV park. And just in case you aren't familiar with this practice, let me tell you a little bit about it. RV parks often say they do not allow RVs that are more than 10 years old. I think that's usually the most common, 10 years old, maybe 15 years old. What I have found in my own experience, this has only happened one time because I avoid RV parks like the plague because I don't like them. They're crammed, they're crowded, they're like these mini suburban communities with rules like HOAs. Not my thing. Not my thing at all, so I avoid them. However, last year, in Nevada, I did stay at one because I needed to do some work on my sewer line. I needed to change a valve and a friend was helping me. So I did stay at an RV park resort. Again, I think that's like the second time, maybe third time in my whole RV life I've ever done that. They did have the 10-year rule. And when I went to check in, I asked if it would be okay. They said, "Where's your RV?" I pointed. They could see it through the window. Luckily, her good side was showing. The side opposite my driver's side is where most of the damage is. Of course, that makes sense, right? That's the harder part to navigate. They looked out the window and they said, "You're fine." And in my research, what I found is that oftentimes it's up to the discretion of the RV park manager or owner as to whether or not they will allow your RV. If you're making reservations ahead of time, if it is an RV park that you absolutely have to stay at, for convenience, or visiting family or whatever, call ahead of time, and you can ask them if there is any discretion. They might ask you for pictures. They might ask you to somehow prove that it's in working order and that you've done all the maintenance on it and that it's not going to break down and get stuck in the park. And that is what I saw, that most of the time, if your RV looks okay, and the one time I had this experience, as long as your RV looks okay, it looks like it'll run. It doesn't look totally like it's falling apart, like you don't have a gray tarp on your strap to your roof. I mean, I'm held together with a Turtibond tape, but they couldn't see that from the office. But that has been my experience, and that is what I'm reading, that there are exceptions to the rule. So if you absolutely positively need to stay in an RV park that has this rule, and you have an RV that's more than 10 years old or whatever their requirement is, you can contact management. You can ask if they make any exceptions and send in pictures and any proof they might need. I've never, ever, ever seen this rule in public campgrounds. I've never seen it in a state park. I've never seen it in a Corps of Engineers park. I have never seen it, I don't even think national parks. Public parks do not have these rules as far as I know. I have stayed in mostly public parks because I prefer state parks and Corps of Engineers, and I've never, ever seen this rule. Nobody has ever asked me making a reservation in a state park in many states across the country. No one has ever asked me how old my RV is. So one way to avoid this is to avoid privately owned parks. The other thing about RV parks and campgrounds, and this does also apply to state parks, is that they often have pet restrictions. I made a reservation, Ohio, maybe Illinois, a couple years ago, traveling cross country. I made a reservation the night before. I knew where I was going to end up to stay at a state park. I went to check in and they said no dogs. I did not see it on the website. I didn't see it. It was literally like small print at the bottom of the page. No dogs allowed. I'm like, really? If you're not going to allow a dog in a campground, it should be bright, bright, bright red and maybe its own pop-up. You understand, before you make this reservation, dogs are not allowed, right? I mean, camping and dogs are like peanut butter and jelly. And they did not allow me to stay. And they did give me a refund, but that is something else you're going to need to be aware of. I think COVID, really, with COVID dogs and people going camping more and poop everywhere and people not, and there's a lot of crazy hyper dogs. I mean, I think that just with the COVID, camping got more popular, dogs got more popular, irresponsible people got more popular, more out in the open. And a lot of these rules started getting put in place. So double check before you make a reservation at any campground, an RV park, a state park, anywhere you're going. Double check their rules. Make sure you are allowed to take dogs if you have a dog. I also saw in my research that some have limits on the number of pets you can take. I think I've probably seen that as well. It just doesn't apply to me, so I didn't pay attention. But I saw a couple who had a dog and 2 indoor cats who never leave their RV, and they were denied access to a campground. I think it was an RV park, even though their cats never leave because they were over the 2-pet limit. So be aware of that restriction. So these are all things that are going to limit our access to where we want to stay as full-time or even part-time RVers, things that you're really going to need to pay attention to. And while we're on the subject of staying in public campgrounds and RV parks, one of the things that you're going to have to be really careful about is staying safe. People can be spying on you without you even knowing it. Nope, the threat isn't out there. The threat is actually right here. I'm being spied on here, not there. And that's why I want to introduce you to my sponsor today, Surfshark VPN. If you're not familiar with a VPN, it's a virtual private network. And what it does is it allows you to surf the internet, visit your bank, visit your websites under the security of a network that encrypts all of your user data so that when you are navigating online, people can't steal your information. It also hides your IP address so you can browse anonymously without people knowing where you are. Another benefit of having a VPN and hiding or even changing your IP address. For example, if you're in the United States, you can actually change your IP address to another country. With more than 3,200 servers in 100 countries, you can decide where you want your computer to look like it's broadcasting from. That is going to help you shop for cheaper airfares, cheaper hotel stays, and things like that, because living in America, there's a little bit of a higher price on certain things when we shop from the United States. But if you shop from another country, you can save some money. You're also going to be able to get access to certain content on streaming services that you can't access from your current location simply by changing your IP address to another location. One of the things that I really love about Surfshark is, number one, how easy it is to install, how easy it is to use. You just put an extension in your browser and turn it on when you're online, and it does the rest. It keeps you protected, it keeps you safe, and it keeps you private. One of the new services they have that is really, really cool is Alternative ID. Using Alternate ID, you can browse the internet using an alias, not just a different name, but also an address. And even if you want to get Alternate ID phone number, you can even get a private phone number that you can use for anything that you're doing online. With all the scams out there, you want to make sure you're protected when you're online, and you can secure your privacy with Surfshark today by entering coupon code CarolynsRV, and you're going to get an extra 4 months absolutely free by using the link in the video description below. So don't let people spy on you. Get started now. So the next thing I want to talk about that's really starting to freak people out about the legality of living full-time in an RV are all of the anti-homelessness laws we're seeing getting passed all across the country. And specifically, the Supreme Court decision in favor of Grants Pass, Oregon, about people sleeping in public places. I'm going to read this to you so that I don't get it wrong. In June 2024, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3, all of the conservative justices ruled in favor, that cities can enforce laws that restrict homeless encampments on public property. The court's decision overturned a lower court ruling that said enforcing these laws violated the 8th Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishments. The court said that the enforcement of laws, this is the important part, the enforcement of laws regulating camping on public property doesn't constitute cruel and unusual punishment. So when this was first passed, I saw a lot of comments, people freaking out, saying, actually even before this, I think Tennessee, because I boycotted Tennessee. Tennessee did something similar a few years ago, saying that it's illegal to camp on public land, or at least that's what people thought it meant. And that's kind of what this sounds like, right? It is illegal to camp on public land now. That's not quite what it means. What it means is that in city parks, like they can say, you cannot camp in this city park, and you can't sleep there if you're an unhoused person. And while this is extremely discriminatory, in my opinion, and I think it is not a very nice thing to do to humanity, to our fellow human beings, I don't necessarily think it's going to directly impact full-time RVers and nomads the way a lot of people think it will. What it means is, though, that any city, county, state, federal government can say you cannot camp on public lands. Period. You can't sleep on public lands. The Supreme Court gave people the authority to do that. I think we're mostly going to see it for now in cities under the specific example that I just gave. You can't sleep in a public park. A lot of people are worried that this is also extending to sleeping in vehicles. There are city and county ordinances. Some are very specific. You can't sleep in your car between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Some say you can't spend more than 3 hours sleeping in your car in a rest area. What this doesn't mean is any federal land. So Colorado has tons of national forests. Just because it may be illegal to sleep in your car in Colorado does not mean you can't camp on national forest land in Colorado. Completely two separate governing bodies, right? So those of you who are freaking out saying, oh my gosh, they passed laws that you can't camp on public lands and you can't sleep in public lands, just know that you have to pay attention to who owns the public land and who is going to legislate over it. Here's my advice. Just if you need to stay in an urban area, because I think most of these laws are really going to be in effect in more urban areas, especially urban areas that have high populations of unhoused people. If you need to be in one of these areas, call ahead. You don't need to tell them who you are or what you're in. Just say, hey, just calling to see what your regulations are, what your laws are about people sleeping in vehicles. I mean, you could be a concerned citizen and find out what the laws are ahead of time. That way you can plan ahead of time. Maybe you can stay at Walmart there. Maybe you need to stay in the next town over or the next county over. Maybe you need to find somebody's driveway or something like that. Overall, right now, I don't think this is going to affect most of us living in RVs, those of us who mostly spend time on public lands. But we're going to talk about that next. Yeah. Number 3, this is really troubling. I am seeing signs more and more. I saw some last year, I think in Wyoming, going into a national forest camping area that said recreational camping only. No residential camping. What concerns me about that is they now have a term for us. We are not recreational campers, we are residential campers. Which means if they can prove that I live full-time in my RV and I am there one night, they can kick me out and possibly fine me. The 2-week rule doesn't apply to me. It literally said 2-week camping limit for recreational campers only. So as a residential camper, what does that mean? And how do they define that? I didn't see that. But as someone who lives full-time in my vehicle in an area that says no residential camping, I am not allowed to be there even one night. But how can they prove that I am not a full-time RVer who is on vacation? Right? Yeah, I'm a full-time RVer, but I'm on vacation right now. Right? I mean, how are they going to prove that? This, I think, is the most concerning thing I think I am seeing that really is starting to worry me a little bit. And we're all going to need to know that this is happening, and we're all going to need to be prepared. I don't think they can come knocking on your door asking for your papers. Pfft, at least not right now. And those papers might be a rental agreement. I mean, they would actually literally have to tell us we have to start traveling with mortgage papers or rental agreements or some other deed to property to show that we don't live full-time in our RV. That would be a huge leap to where we are right now. Right now, what I could see is if you look like you're living there, and especially if you overstay your welcome, please don't ever overstay your welcome. Follow the rules. That's why this stuff is happening. We're on their radar. That's what worries me. We are on the National Forest Service radar. We have gotten so big. There are so many of us. And unfortunately, there are so many who do not follow the rules. How are they going to start defining residential versus recreational camping? We all need to be prepared for that now, because I did see on Reddit, the Rangers came along, went around and asked everybody, are you full-time? Are you full-time? And he made all the full-timers leave. And by the time they got to the guy who posted, he was like, no, I'm not full-time, and he got to stay. We need to be prepared for how to answer, where do you live? Do you live in your RV? What are you doing here? All of those questions. I had that recently last year coming back east. I had a ranger in a wildlife management area ask me a lot of questions, and I have been doing this long enough. I know not to be too forthcoming with certain people. I was like, yeah, I'm going back to see my mom. I've been making this trip. My home base is in Nevada. And so you need to have your talking points down. Write down what your talking points are and memorize them so that they come naturally, so that when you are approached by law enforcement or a ranger, you can answer that naturally. Yeah, I have a home base. I don't know if they would ever outright ask if you live in your RV. Even if they did, do you live in your RV? Well, my home base is in Nevada. That's how I answer it. And usually that's enough. And I don't know that you actually have to answer all those questions, but I would be prepared. And the final thing that I want to talk about that I think is concerning for the future of RV living is private property. Can you live in an RV on private property? The answer is not everywhere. I started looking for property 3 or 4 years ago. I was looking in New Mexico and quickly learned that there are a ton of rules and zoning laws and regulations about what you can and cannot do on property you own. There were so many subdivisions in New Mexico with rules about how long you can stay in an RV. Some of them were 2 weeks a year. I think the most generous was maybe 4 months a year. So don't think that you're going to be able to buy a piece of property in any state, in any place, and just go live on your RV. I know a lot of people choose Arizona. There are many places in Arizona that don't have all of those rules. But just know those rules exist. Even on your own land, you may or may not be allowed to live in your RV. So before you purchase, do your research. If it's in a subdivision, I had to go digging into the subdivision when it was created, into the bylaws of like the group that governed it, to find the paperwork online, to find the rules and regulations, or just work with a realtor, and they should be able to help you navigate what all of the zoning laws and rules are for living in your RV on your own damn property. Home of the free. Home of the free. So those are my biggest concerns right now, or those are the things that are on the radar that are concerns for a lot of people about living in an RV. So what do I think about the future of RV living? I think in many cases it's going to become more difficult, depending on how you do it. Well, I think in any way that you do it, it sounds like it's going to be more difficult, with RV parks and campgrounds getting more restrictive about the types of RVs and the age of RVs and pets. That's going to be more challenging. Staying in cities and towns, boondocking, stealth camping, because of the Supreme Court decision that says, yeah, they can make camping in the public places illegal, and you staying overnight in your RV on a city street could be considered camping, and it could be illegal. It's going to be challenging, but not impossible. The public land, no residential camping is my biggest concern. But still, even that, how are they going to prove that you're residential camping and not recreational, barring literally starting to ask us to carry proof that we have a home base? And that's a little concerning. I don't think that we're in danger of losing our rights to live the way we are living in the next few years. I think we're okay for a few years, and it'll be interesting to see how all of these things swing, and maybe even RV life will become less popular as conditions in this country maybe improve. But for now, I think we're all okay. It might take a little more research, being a little more planning, being proactive, making phone calls, making sure that you are staying well within the laws and the rules. And remember, don't ruin it for everybody. These laws are put in place because a few people don't follow the rules, don't follow the laws. You know, they overstay their welcome. They leave their garbage behind. They leave their poop behind, and they don't move around enough. They congregate in all of the most popular areas. And so locals are starting to get mad that when they want to go recreate in the national forest near them, it's full of full-timers, and that's starting to create an uproar. I even saw, I think on Facebook recently, somebody left a comment on a camping Facebook group that she was really upset that she when she wants to go to her local campground that she's been going to for a long time, it's full of full-timers working on inside their vans with their Starlinks out. She was really mad that she can't go enjoy the quiet campground in the off season anymore because it's full of full-timers. I can kind of understand that, to be honest with you. I can understand that. We're out here all the time now, and I think as more people start to get fed up with that, with the crowds year round, and with seeing people living in campgrounds and forests, I think what's the word I'm looking for? I think we're going to start seeing more rules and laws put in place to restrict us. So that's another piece of advice. Try to avoid the really, really popular places. Go out. Don't rely just on the apps. Go, drive, explore, find your own places. I prefer that anyway. I don't understand why you would want to go stay in a crowd of people, even on public lands. But if you avoid the really, really popular areas, and especially the forests just outside of major cities, go off on your own. If you're the only one, even for a few miles on a national forest, nobody's going to bother you, or a Bureau of Land Management. If you're the only one out there, the chances are you're going to be left alone. So avoid the crowds. I don't think RV life is dying quite yet. I think it's going to be getting harder and harder and harder. That's my take on it, and I hope you found this helpful. What do you think? What are your thoughts? What have your experiences been living in an RV? Or if you have been planning to live a nomadic life, are these new laws and rules making you think twice about doing it? Or if you've been on the road a while, are you kind of getting sick of all the regulations and crowds, and are you thinking about a backup plan and getting out? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, be happy, be free, and be kind. I'll see you soon.